here we go. Hello and welcome to an emergency edition of the Same Old Stripes podcast. I'm not going to go on some big, long diatribe. If you missed the news last night, Orlando Brown Jr., if you remember him, he was last seen on the field playing the game of his career in the Super Bowl, leading the Chiefs to a Super Bowl championship against the Philadelphia Eagles in some terrible field conditions. But all the things that go into this. $64 million deal over 4 years. It comes with $31 million in guaranteed money. It also comes with the largest signing bonus in offensive line history. The Bengals go out, and after a few days of waiting around and Bengals fans starting to get really nervous, they make what is possibly the very best possible case scenario move for this team, this franchise, this organization. We're going to get into all of that in a minute, but Billy, let's check in with you first. How have you been in the last 12 hours or so since the Bengals, that news was announced that Orlando Brown Jr. is protecting Joey Franchise's blind side?
So first off, I got to thank you for being like round the clock on Twitter. I think you sent the tweet out like maybe 45 seconds after it came on the wire.
Yeah. So just for clarification, Tio just replies, "What?" question mark.
My wife for my birthday got me a Cincinnati Bengals sparkling wine champagne set that I said it would not open until he won the Super Bowl. I drank the whole fucking bottle last night when that happened. And I said this to you, and I was talking to my dad about this today, and it sure could be up for debate. This is the biggest single move that this franchise has made in its history, in my opinion. When you look at just the surrounding of where it is, where this team is, where this organization is, this was the move, man. It was the move. We'll talk about the ins and outs of the deal and what it means for us this year and going forward. But that's just it was something I don't think any of us expected. I think we brought it up a little bit maybe last week of the possibility, and just like, one, we didn't really think he'd come, and two, I don't think we thought we'd be able to pull it off. But it's one of those things, man, where this is a Super Bowl move to me, man. This is a move that we talk about next February of hopefully where we are and our chance to win a ring, and we come back to March 15th of 2022 of a move that really, just put us over the top.
Yeah, and I mean, this really is the kind of move that does put you over the top, because I mean, we'll talk about what the rest of the line picture looks like in a minute, but I mean, to solidify that left side, for the next 4 years, but really to have a top 10 offensive tackle dropped into this line on a line that was already starting to hum a little bit last year, it's just incredibly exciting. And when you talk about a player of his pedigree, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion. He's 26 years old, which is the same age as Joe Burrow and myself. And then when you look at the way the rest of the market falls, it's an insane deal. I mean, you have the Broncos, who came right out on day one, signed Mike McGlinchey, who all of us thought would be a guy the Bengals wouldn't be in on, but isn't really the most exciting player. He's a right tackle. He's going for $87.5 million with $52.5 million guaranteed. You look at Jawan Taylor, another right tackle who the Chiefs are using to replace Orlando Brown Jr. 4 years, $80 million, $60 million guaranteed. What this team was able to do to be patient, to be smart, and to be confident that they could make a move. To Orlando Brown Jr., a player of that pedigree. I mean, Billy, just as a Bengals fan, I mean, did you ever think you'd see the day when they would, not only talk the talk of, protecting Joe Burrow for the long run, but walk the walk with the best player on the market?
I'll put it this way. Like I said to you guys today, and after secondary thoughts of it all, they have done everything correct in this rookie window that they have of Joe Burrow. I saw the tweet last night. I forgot to give credit to where it came. I know you saw it too. about how the rookie deal just allows them to kind of front end this deal. I think the last 2 years, the last year, he's not making much at all, but the guarantee and the front load really helps. Um, I, listen, this is you're gonna think I'm a broken record on this podcast, but this move itself comes down to one guy, and it comes down to nine. When you have a guy like that and that stature, with all due respect to Ken Anderson and Boomer Esiason, there's never been a guy to put on the black and orange that is as polarizing as Joe. We'll talk about like the ins and outs and who is in on Orlando coming up, but if Nine's not here, he's not here. And it's not even a question, And then I think, when you look at teams like Denver, even Kansas City, like jumping the gun on some of these guys, when you paid the quarterback, you kind of have to do that. And when you don't have the quarterback, you kind of have to do that as well, because you're not as, lucrative as a place as Cincinnati. And, we'll talk this podcast a little bit too about some guys that have stepped their tippy toes in Cincinnati in the last couple of days. But, since he's a place to be, and as a 29-year-old human being on this earth, 10 years ago, I didn't think that I'd ever really say it, man. To go off a little rant here, I was talking to a buddy the other day about like how the NFL is structured and set up. Like, obviously, you got to hit goal on a quarterback if you're not good. But so many teams, man, I can go down the list. I was telling you this the other day of, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Carolina, Atlanta, Miami, I'll put in that category. The Rams, the Niners, even with like when you don't have a guy that can be the head of the snake and a franchise quarterback who is a top 10 guy in the league and a guy that proves that he can win in January and February, you're just in purgatory, man, because one, guys aren't going to want to play there. And two, like, is there any worse feeling than what we felt from 2016 and 2019, where your ceiling is 8-8? I'll never forget. I took you to the Miller's Ale House in Deer Park, Long Island, with us. I sat about 2 tables away from where we sat in a December game against the Denver Broncos at home when AJ Green, played 2 snaps and got carted off, and that was all I had to look forward to all year. There's nothing worse than that, man. And there were some dark days to get here, man. But as you said, we're here and we're here to stay.
Certainly here to stay. And the 4-year deal, I think, really puts the mustard on that. I mean, he'll be 30 when that deal expires. If he plays well enough, he won't leave town, because they're going to be franchise left tackles don't get away. And I think that's what I keep coming back to. For this team to have the Jonah Williams question that we've debated a lot, and frankly, we've come to the conclusion that it's probably the end of the line there, one more year and kind of see how that plays out. We can talk about that kind of situation in a second, but they have a franchise left tackle now. And he's not, maybe the most elite guy. He's not Trent Williams, but every team in the league is looking for Orlando Brown. All 32 of them would use him. All 32 of them could they'd find a starting role for him. Something that I just find really cool in this too is this guy has been, and this is where I want to get into the Joe Burrow of it all, and then we'll talk about a few other items, but this guy has been a starting tackle for 2 MVP seasons. He was the right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens in 2019 when Lamar Jackson had his MVP season. He was the left tackle for the Chiefs last season when Mahomes won his MVP. Now that the Bengals line is solidified, I mean, it just opens the sky for Joe Burrow to finally have this MVP season, because he was on the precipice last year. And we all know that if he played the Bills game, maybe that's, it swings it over to him. It would have been hard to get past Mahomes realistically, but a full season with a really good line, with the best set of wide receivers in the NFL.
Yep.
Billy, in the Joe Burrow sense, I mean, how exciting is this, and how excited are you for Joe Burrow moving forward now? I mean, are you feeling the MVP season coming like I am?
I am, but more important than the MVP, and I reiterated this the second that Buckner field goal went through, you need the 1 seed to win a Super Bowl. It's just the advantages of playing at home, having the extra week to prepare, having the extra week to rest guys. you have to be all in to get that 1 seed. And to be honest, I think that's where Duke is. That's where Duke has kind of made these moves kind of align. We'll talk about it again coming up, but with all due love and respect to Von Bell and Jesse Bates, you made one of the best points I've seen any Bengal analyst make yesterday that I don't think we gave you enough credit for when you said it. We flipped the money for Jesse Bates and Von Bell for Orlando freaking Brown Jr. I love Jesse. I love Von. I think they were huge character guys. They're the reason why our defense is where it is. You can plug a couple guys up there and get similar production and lose, mad scientist type of system. You can't plug anyone, and with all due respect to Jackson Carman, how he played, you can't plug a guy left tackle in February and say, "Hey, let's go win an AFC Championship game." You can't do that. And I think something that's so underrated about Orlando Brown that I don't think enough people are saying, he moved from being a Pro Bowl right tackle to a Pro Bowl left tackle. I understand the Trent Williams talk, and maybe you're right. Maybe Trent Williams is a more talented left tackle. I don't think there's really anyone in the game right now that can give you a Pro Bowl season at right tackle and then follow up with a Pro Bowl season at left tackle.
It's so hard to do.
It's insane. And hearing him on Get Up this morning about how, his father's legacy, how he wants to be a left tackle, left tackle runs in his blood. It's yours, bud. That's your spot. You can pencil your name. You can pencil that name in there for the next 4 years. And again, I think with you hopefully above, this screams like an Andrew Whitworth type of career for me, where you really didn't worry on that side. You went from Willie to Witt. It's such a move, man, that I think it sends us over the top, man. It's as much as we wanted to Band-Aid over it, the line was an issue, and obviously the Kappa injury and obviously the Jonah injury were huge down the stretch and in the playoffs. But to look what they've done in a 2-year span, they've overhauled all 5 positions at one point in this stretch. It shows again where the money is. The money is number 9, and going back to what you said, how I feel about Joe Burrow is he's ready to take off.
So an underrated factor in all of this to me too. And by the way, Joe Burrow MVP odds sitting at plus 700 right now, tied with Allen and Mahomes. I'd expect those to get a little shorter. So if you want to get on that action now, FanDuel's got that at plus 700. We're not sponsored by any sports book, so I don't feel bad mentioning FanDuel. But I think the longevity and health is such a big thing to me in all of this, especially for a guy like Orlando Brown. Across his career, he's missed 1 game. Singular. 1 game. He missed 1 game for the Chiefs last year. I don't remember if it was an injury or if they were resting guys, but he's played all 16 games in 18, 19, 20, missed 1 in 21, and played all 17 games in 2022. Never missed a playoff game. Last year's playoffs, by the way, allows 0 sacks, which I think Bengals fans having a left tackle that allows 0 sacks during a playoff run, I think they're going to like that sound. But to circle back, the longevity thing is so big for me. And now you have 4 pieces on your line, going left to right. You have Orlando Brown Jr., who really hasn't missed time. Cordell Volson, who started every single game last year as a rookie. Ted Karras, who has missed 1 start throughout his entire career and, obviously played a bunch of different roles. So not going to start all those games throughout his career, but never really an injury guy. Alex Kappa, injured at the end of last season, but historically played through, harsh injuries, including a broken arm in a playoff game. This is just a gritty line that's not going to take a lot of injuries and not be hurt. And I think when we talk about La'el Collins last year, that was the thing that always felt a little dangerous to Bengals fans. He brought the injury history. That's not a thing with Orlando Brown Jr. It's not a part of his history. He's played 5 full seasons in the NFL and missed 1 game. That says everything you need to know to me. Billy, for you, does that make you feel even better about this? How does that feel to you in contrast to what we were getting with La'el Collins last year?
100%. I think even last year, I think we could probably all say like we love the LC move, we love the culture about it, but we worried of the possibility of what ended up happening. Um, I'll say it again. Like, if we have a healthy line, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind. Honestly, we probably win the Super Bowl. Like, our skill guys and our ability to kind of do things that other teams just simply can't match up with is just uncanny. I go back to the 4th and 8 play with Uno. I mean, there's if you give him time, man, the possibilities are just endless. And as we transition to the next couple of questions here, like, there are a couple other upgrades that maybe aren't popular with every, group of fans that we have out here, but there are things where you can kind of tweak around here and there that I think. I mean, do you see a game where the Bengals score under like 24 all year? Barring a massive weather event, I don't.
Exactly what came to mind, like a huge muddy rainstorm or
I,
something.
I
And even then, look what they did in Buffalo.
I don't see it, man. Like, how do you stop this team? Like, literally, like, how do you stop this team? And it reminds me a lot of the Chiefs the year when they got home field, they lost to New England off the offside call. Like, that was a team, like, every week you knew they were going in, they were putting up a shit ton of points, and you kind of knew what they were going to do, and you still couldn't stop it. And I think that's kind of our MO this year of being like, to me, like, maybe I'm being greedy. The number's 14. I think you got to get to 14-3. Like, I think that's huge. I think 14-3 would secure the division, would secure the 1 seed, and kind of set you up for that path you need.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. It really, having him, just the singular piece, man. You put that in, it just raises, and I'll say it again. I don't think I've said it on the show, actually, now I'm thinking about it, but it raises the floor and the ceiling of your offensive line in such a drastic way. And that cannot be understated. And then you look at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs right now, who have now lost both of their starting tackles from last season, still don't have a replacement at the right tackle, and are going to be trying Jawan Taylor at left tackle, a position he's never played in his NFL career, and he's making more money than the guy who just had an incredible playoff run as a Kansas City Chiefs left tackle. And it's a guy they've put a lot of assets in because they tried to trade for him from the Baltimore Ravens. So for me, it directly picks away from your biggest rival right now, your biggest competition in the entire league. I mean, this is the kind of move that elevates you to number 1 seed. You already mentioned that. But I think we should kind of take a little inventory of this whole offensive line now, because it's just much better. And we already saw what Joe Burrow was able to do with a little bit more last year. So let's go left to right. And right is the right tackle position is probably the biggest thing for conversation. You're going to have Orlando Brown Jr. playing left tackle. He said that. That was a part of the agreement with the Bengals, and frankly, it's one I agree with. I respect Jonah, but when I have Orlando Brown Jr., I'm not worried about feelings. Left guard's going to be Cordell Volson. I know some Bengals fans brought up La'el Collins maybe moving there, maybe Jonah Williams moving there, maybe even Cody Ford's making a free agent visit today. We'll talk about that in a minute, but maybe with him there. I don't suspect that. I think that they're confident and comfortable rolling with Cordell Volson as the left guard, and they want him to win that job for the long term. Ted Karras, mayor of Cincinnati himself, starting center. Right guard's going to be Alex Cappa, which another guy that was playing at a Pro Bowl level before he was hurt. So you're going to have 2 Pro Bowl players on your offensive line. And then you're going to have Jonah Williams or La'el Collins on the right side, maybe Hakeem Adeniji, maybe even a draft pick. Maybe they still go DeJuan Jones or Anton Harrison and really keep building up that offensive line. And really, when you just put that all out there, that's a good offensive line, man. Any team in the league would be happy to take that offensive line. How do you feel about what I just listed out there? Does that not just sound awesome to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my personal take, if we're gonna go talk about the right tackle right away, I transitioned Jonah there, but it's LC for me. I think I really do. I think LC, if he can come back, depending when and timing of it, and that's what I think too. What the Orlando Brown thing does, it gives LC, if LC is the answer, it gives them some buffer there, right? It allows Jonah to kind of make a transition. It allows them to possibly, work with Adeniji, possibly address it at 28. Um, to my theory that we talked about a couple weeks ago, I think this points, in my opinion, a trade back at 28. I
Oh, for
think
sure. Why
I
not?
I think this definitely a pitch to me of a trade back at 28, maybe into the early second if we can to add, and then at a later pick of just the possibility of adding a lineman there and adding a skill position player, possibly or a corner, defensive back. The possibilities are endless, like I think you said yesterday. Um, you know, a fan of Jonah. I think he's an awesome guy. Like you said, when Orlando Brown Jr. is there, that's just your left tackle. That's just kind of the role of the business. Um, I've always said it, man. That the measurements for me just move Jonah inside for his regular this is position in the NFL. In college, the college level, especially when you're playing Alabama and you're superior at a lot of positions, if you can get away with it. I do think the measurements have hurt Jonah personally on
Yeah.
on
His reach just isn't there. He's got short arms,
it's
man.
the reach isn't there. Like he's got the guard body, man, and it's tough. And it's tough when you played tackle for so long. But maybe but again, like the addition of Orlando Brown Jr. right now, and like we said about just having patience. Let's just have patience and see what it is. Like let's see what the market folds out for it. Let's see. Maybe there's a tackle that comes on the board. Maybe there's a guy that we can kind of add. Maybe, we add interior. We make some moves around. Like we have so many different options. And this one came out of left field, but you know, Orlando Brown Jr. just he makes you so. And like you said, you made a great point. The ceiling's so high, the floor's so high. And that's what you're looking for, man. You're not going to get great offensive line play every single week in this league. It's just too many good outside edge rushers.
And Bengals fans are Myles Garrett's still going to get his. It doesn't matter.
He's going to get
Anthony
his.
Munoz going to be playing left tackle, and Myles Garrett would still get his.
He's going to get his, right? I think the ability for this line to kind of have Orlando Brown there, and I think one of the biggest things that we talked about at the 0-2 start when the world was burning down was the fact that they didn't play at all in the preseason, which I wouldn't be surprised if they went a similar route this year. But I think if there's a guy that you can kind of put in there that could be plug and play right away, you couldn't have picked a better guy in the league. You got a guy that has been a Pro Bowl at right tackle, followed up with a Pro Bowl at left tackle, has been a tackle for 2 MVPs, has a Super Bowl ring. Like, there's not much adjustments needed to play with that guy. That's going to be hey, one-on-one, here's the scheme, watch for the blitz, and go to work, So I love what it does for the line. Leap would be Jonah until LC gets back. It'd be a little bit of a competition. But I'm also not opposed to the opportunity of having Jonah inside. And I think Ace said it the other day, like the way that the Jonah contract kind of sits out, he's a valuable trade piece going into the April draft. Like if it comes down to it, and you could get, dare I say, like a high 2 for him, it's possible, right? Like it's a 1-year type of thing. If you're looking at a team like, you're trying to run down some of these teams here. Like you're looking at a team like New Orleans, or there's a team who could use an upgrade. Even the Jets. Like you're looking at a team like the Jets that could use an upgrade and can kind of, they're in a purgatory type of situation with their draft capital. Like why not? Why not squeeze some teams for whatever you can? So again, just makes the Bengals way, way, way more dangerous now.
Yeah, and I love the idea. And you don't even have to trade him, but dangling him for a trade piece. Figure out if you can get a little something that's, valuable. Because then you can use that piece or use a piece earlier in the draft even to address right tackle for the long term. And then you're really locked up because those other 4 guys that we mentioned, Brown, Volson, Karras, Kappa, all under contract for at least 2 more seasons in Cincinnati. You have your core of your offensive line locked up. You use a draft piece to, trade out Jonah perhaps. But really, the flexibility it gives you is the nice part because you can do so many different things. And I think that if we can get into that on Monday or Tuesday show, Hell, I don't know what they're going to do. They might force us to have another emergency episode. That I don't even know at this point. Um, I want to talk a little bit about other moves because, I mean, we didn't get to talk to you guys earlier in the week about Jermaine Pratt resigning, but again, we'll get to some of that extra stuff on Monday. Let's look at these visits real fast and just touch on a couple other free agent things before we wrap up. We don't want to go super long for you guys. This is an emergency edition of this podcast, but a few things on the book. Nick Scott, a safety from the Rams, is coming in for a visit. Played every snap in the Super Bowl against the Bengals. Had an up and down year last year for a really rough Rams defense. So, take him with a grain of salt. That'd be your Von Bell replacement. I actually really like him as a player. I think he's very interesting. Fits that Bengals sweet spot and coming off his rookie contract and still in his prime. And then Cody Ford is the other name. I think he played for the Cardinals last year, but was drafted by the Bills. Went 3 picks ahead of the Bengals year they picked Drew Sample. Another interesting note on Cody Ford is he is actually the guy who was elevated to start that put Quentin Spain on the market in 2020 because Quentin Spain did not care for being benched and asked for his release. So interesting that Cody Ford comes back to the Bengals now in this capacity. Let's talk Cody Ford first. I don't necessarily think he's a starter, but just your thoughts on the Bengals, even now continuing to seek offensive line depth.
Yeah, it's a depth move, and I think we saw, listen, he would have been a great fit into, the injuries they had in the playoffs. But, kind of similar to a Max Sharping, if I have to say it, like of a guy who's been a starter, you have in the bullpen, and, you need to throw in a plug and play a week or two. He's there. So I like that. I'll double with you again. I think Nick Scott's a great fit. And I know we'll talk in a second about a couple other guys. I don't think it's being talked enough. As much as we love Juice on the outside, he can play up top. He has the ability. He has the athleticism. I'm super excited, and this is like excited and not excited at the same time because I think what Lou's going to be able to do with less this year, if he doesn't get a fucking job soon, man, it doesn't make sense to me. But I'm excited to see what he kind of configures with some of these guys because I think Nick's. I think it's a good move in the sense of just being like he says he wants Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a good replacement for Von Bell, versatile athletic guys in the secondary. So I love that. I love that visit. I think that's a good, secondary replacement there for Vaughn. But there's another guy I think we'll talk about here on the outside that I think just makes a lot of sense if we can make it work and hopefully get it done.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of puts those two visits in good perspective. Both are kind of, Ford would be a depth signing. Scott would be a starting signing, but I like you mentioning Cam Taylor-Britt and having versatility, but I think that's more what this kind of speaks to. Continuing to add versatility, continuing to add guys that can see the field. Honestly, it puts Louis Anarumo and the Bengals defense in a great spot if they bring in a name like him. Let's transition to some of the bigger names that are still kind of floating out there that are definitely on the Bengals' radar. So first one we'll talk about, and then we can circle back on Ekeler because that's an interesting name as well. But Mike Gesicki is probably the big target left for the Bengals right as of now. Obviously, Hayden Hurst goes to Carolina on a 3-year, $24 million deal that the Bengals never would have gotten close to. Way too much guaranteed cash, too. I think that they would have done a $5 million deal, and I really don't think they would have done a multiple-year deal. They're not interested in paying guys over the age of 30, and he's entering his age 30 season. So that's that. Mike Gesicki, similar to the Hayden Hurst investment, honestly. It'd be a 1-year kind of deal to help him get more money, theoretically. And obviously, the story this morning is Mike Hilton reaching out and saying, come to Cincinnati. And, Mike Gesicki rightfully pointing out that 88's available. Your thoughts on him? Obviously, Joe Burrow's getting tight ends paid. CJ Uzomah and Hayden Hurst in back-to-back seasons. Your thoughts on Mike Gesicki?
I think, and we've talked about this a lot in this pod, when you have the amount of skill guys that the Bengals have and the weapons they have on the outside, it really is like a rotating door there, tight end. I told our boy Tio, I was like, you give us Ekeler in the backfield, we could put his 7-year-old son Finley at tight end, we'd be fine. I like Gesicki, but I'll tie it back into Orlando Brown. You don't have to jump at Gesicki if you don't like the number,
No,
because you can go a tight end at 28 or at any point in the early second round if you get a trade back. So again, it kind of ties into, the Bengals have the upper hand, and how long has it been since we've said that? The leverage all lies in Cincinnati.
what a beautiful thing to say. It does lie with Cincinnati, and Gesicki probably knows that too. I think that he would have to be willing to take a discount to come here, and that's probably part of the equation for him. It's kind of hard to tell a tight end not to go to Cincinnati and prove it at this point when you have guys getting paid the way they're getting paid. I do want to touch on Ekeler a little bit because I find it very interesting. While I'm personally not a big fan of paying running backs big money contracts, if you're going to cut Joe Mixon and you're going to pay a running back, Austin Ekeler makes all the sense in the world, and you might not even have to extend him that long term. I know he's only making about $6 million a year on his current deal with the Chargers. He would probably come at a low draft compensation number, maybe like a sixth or a fifth. And even then, I mean, you could probably get him on a 2 or 3 year extension if that's what he desires. And if not, maybe he just wants to come play for Burrow, because I really don't think what the Chargers offense does gets the best out of his skill set. There's rumors going around, and I haven't been able to confirm, but I've heard from multiple sources that he was in Cincinnati on Monday night having dinner with Joe Burrow. Again, people say all kinds of things this time of year, but if Joe Burrow is at the precinct with Austin Ekeler, we obviously know that's been a successful method for the Bengals in the past. But Billy, your thoughts about maybe switching out Joe Mixon and putting in Austin Ekeler? Because I love that fit for this offense. I think that's a much better football fit.
Yeah, I mean, the guy I said all year was all off season so far has been, give me a Pacheco type that can catch the ball in the backfield, and I mean, he's a prototype right there. I think, you could say what you want about Mix, and we've all had our strong opinions on him. Um, you know, for me, it's not as much of the player as it is the contract. 12 and a half, and I think we knew that, and that's my thing with, like, you know, a lot of our fan base, as it kind of like talks to like the loyalty aspect of it. He's not stupid. He had to have known in year 3 at 12.5 million. And I said this to my dad. The only way, like, and we see all these numbers in the NFL when it comes to these couple of weeks, and we go, oh my God. But like those last couple of years on some of these guys, I mean, there's no way. And we probably all knew, barring the Bengals winning a Super Bowl and him being Super Bowl MVP, it's just the number's too high. I'm all in on Austin Ekeler. I think Austin Ekeler takes this team to a different level. And I'll give you one more. I'm all in on Austin Ekeler RB1 and Travion Williams RB2. I really think Travion Williams can take a step this year. I I'm kind of surprised of the Pirine deal to Denver, and especially the number. But what it tells me is that if they weren't willing to get to that number with Samaje Pirine, that there's a plan for Travion Williams more than running at kickoffs.
Yeah, and what Paul Dehner Jr. and Jay Morrison reported on their podcast last night, which came out around midnight or 1 a.m. or so, but I listened to it at the gym this morning like an absolute psychopath. It sounded like they really pushed hard to keep Samaje Pirine and thought they would have been able to. I think they had a little bit lesser offer in, but the Broncos ended up just being a better situation for him. And honestly, it might be an opportunity for him to shine brighter with Javonte Williams working his way back from a knee injury still.
Right. No, definitely. But hey, going back to, man, I love where we sit. I think this is the best move that could have possibly been done. And again, I put out a tweet the other day is, great teams don't panic. And the famous Aaron Rodgers line, RELAX. Let's just relax, everybody. Yeah. I'll end the pod here with this. If we've noticed anything since 2021 with this team, is that Duke Tobin knows what the F he's doing. He's done it the right way. And I think that's what you worry about. And I know I've always worried about this with a franchise of, not as much of like, can we sign Joe? Because I think once, the Super Bowl run happened and just the amount of like, his love for the city and the city's love for him kind of just kicked in. It was when you've never been there, how do you react, right? Like we use this all the time in coaching. Like get to a big game, a playoff game, or a championship type game. If you've never played in it, how do you react, right? You've never been in a situation. How do you react? And Duke Tobin's reacted just like he's been there every single year when he hasn't. And it's kind of one of those things, man, where I think that the trust that the Brown family has in him and Zach, it's just, I mean, like let's call a spade 100%. We were calling for Zach's job in 2021 at a point.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to say I was one to say like this guy might not be able to do this. And what him and Duke have been able to do in the last 24 months, man, is just 5 playoff wins, back-to-back AFC championship games, going to a Super Bowl. I
back-to-back division championships.
Listen, you could say all you want about the Mahomes stuff, and it probably is true, but I mean, I would argue the run that the Bengals are having here with their rookie deal, I'd put it up probably against anyone because they've curtailed to everything the market has. They haven't set the market. They've let a lot of things play out. They haven't made panic moves. And more importantly, man, this is, and I'll say it again, this has become a landing spot. And it's something, we think back to years past, man, where we couldn't get guys to visit Cincinnati. like we'd have all seasons. Like I remember back in 07, 08, like we're just hoping guys just come in and take a flight, like take a flight and take the free steak dinner. I mean, guys wouldn't even do it. They wouldn't get on the plane. We're at a point, man, and where this is a destination to be. And as much as credit you want to give to Joe, you can't end this pile without giving the credit to Duke and Zach because, we were the first ones and probably rightfully so at the time that said, hey, like this isn't good enough. But, those guys have made it work and they're a huge part of why we are here.
And here we are, man. And this is where we'll wrap it up. Orlando Brown Jr. is the starting left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals for the next 4 years and for years to come. They've built a wall around Joe Burrow, and they are right there as one of the Super Bowl frontrunners entering the 2023 season.
Dude.
For Billy and myself, this has been an emergency edition of the Same Old Stripes podcast. Enjoy the rest of your free agency period, guys. We'll be back to talk to you if there's any other crazy news, but we'll definitely be back to start next week. For Billy and myself, hoo-day.
Hoo-day, baby.